Okay, and we are live. A very warm welcome to all of you to this 20th edition of CIONEXT. My name is André Dekkers. I'm the founder of CIONET, and it is my pleasure and my privilege to welcome all of you to this conference. Now, the topic of today is mastering complexity, thriving in the era of data explosion. And that's what we're going to discuss in the next 90 minutes. And for that, we have invited a wonderful panel to discuss that topic today. So we have with us Subramanian, who is the general manager of Hitachi Vantara, general manager core storage platforms. We have André Exner, group IT director for Customer Hub and Common Analytics at TUI. And we have Kalman Tiboldi, the CTO of Gem1, which is part of TVH. And so with this group, we're going to discuss complexity. Now, before we get started, I first wanted to thank the great collaboration in this program with Hitachi Vantara. And so Jay is representing them today, and he's going to talk also about the solutions that Hitachi Vantara has in this area. So thank you, Hitachi, for this collaboration. If you want to dive a little bit deeper and learn more about Jay and about Hitachi Vantara's solution in this area, I invite you to go to CIONET.tv, and there you find Jay's long format video interview that we did a couple of weeks ago together with 130 other top videos. And so that is a very, very insightful discussion that we had there on the same topic that we are discussing today. For your agendas, quick announcement: if you're a CIONET member, the 20th of March is D-Day, because then we are celebrating CIO Fest, and we're going to discuss charting your CIO career, and we will have insights and reflections for some of the top industry leaders. This is members only on the 20th of March. Parallel in 7 or 8 countries at the same time. The next public event that we're going to do is the 21st edition of CIONEXT, and that will be done on the 3rd of April. And so you can already register for that. It's CIONEXT.com/21, and there we are going to discuss IT leadership. Are we at the end of IT leadership? And why is it that every technology leader today, of course, must be a strong business leader as well? And maybe we'll discuss if business leaders need to become more and more tech savvy and become technology leaders themselves as well. So CIONEXT.com/21 is where you can register for that. But today we're going to discuss mastering complexity, and I'm going to invite our panelists to join us here and to get started with the discussion. And so to get started, I would first ask every one of you to briefly introduce himself. So who are you? A little bit of background. What is your function in your organization today? And what is the company all about? Jay, you are joining us from Santa Clara. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning. So good morning to you, sir, and welcome to this conference. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Henrik, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to join the panel here. My name is Jay Subramanian, as Henrik already said. I run the core storage platforms at Hitachi Vantara. For those of you who don't know Hitachi Vantara is providing solutions for data infrastructures that power a lot of the Fortune 100 mission-critical applications. And it is part of the global Hitachi conglomerate, which I'm sure most of you have heard. We kind of run the whole gambit of energy, power, rail, digital services, security across the board. Name it, we probably have something to do with that in the Hitachi conglomerate. That's Hitachi Vantara is part of that. In the past instance, people might have heard about it as Hitachi Data Systems. But as I said, we run a lot of the mission critical applications in the Fortune 100 companies, and we provide the data infrastructure that powers all of these stuff.
And what is it that you do at the organization, Jay?
So I'm the general manager for all of the block storage and the core storage platforms, which is a $3 billion business for globally.
Okay.
I have engineering and product management functions, and obviously run the business for the company.
So a very warm welcome to you, Jay. André, Exner, live from Hanover. André, if you could please introduce yourself and also your role, and give us a little bit the big picture of the TUI group.
Yeah, thanks, Hendrik. I'm happy to do that. So also welcome from my side. Yeah, maybe I'll start with TUI and then come to myself. Yeah, TUI is a global operating travel company. So our source markets are more or less across mainly Europe, but our destinations are around the world, and we are vertically integrated. We're not just a broker. We have cruise ships, we have hotels, and we have a lot of franchise concepts. So you might have come across our logo at least somewhere in the world. And to myself, my name is André Exner, and we have a global IT, so we do every function just once. And Customer Hub and Common Analytics, that means Customer Hub, that's all the customer-facing platforms, or the platforms that have the customer data, which means the group marketing platform, as an example, account, loyalty, permissions, all of that. And Common Analytics, that's interesting also, and with regards to the topic of today, that is where we enable the whole group with data platforms. So from a data lake up to an enterprise data warehouse and all the tooling that you need for AI, for visualization. So everything is there to speed every part in the company up.
Okay, super. Thank you for that introduction, André. And given your background and your focus on data, that will bring us a lot of added value in this discussion. Kalman, if you could please introduce yourself, your role, and your company, please.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Hendrik, having me. This interesting topic that we will debate today and share our experience with the audience. So I'm Kalman Tiboldi, from the former Chief Business Innovation Officer of TVH, and certainly the founder and the CEO and CTO of Gem1, which is a digital spin-off of TVH. The company, we are located in Belgium, headquartered in Belgium, a large international company. What we are doing, we are supporting our customers in different industries, in aftermarket services. We are the largest distributor of spare parts in the world. And certainly the technology, data, and all innovation is behind. We are running the largest e-commerce system, almost 90% of our daily activity going through. And you can imagine how important is the data for TVH, not just for running the operation, but also the whole technical knowledge. And definitely, I'm more than happy to share my experience with the audience.
How big is TVH as a group, Kalman?
In this moment, we are running a business worth 1.6 billion worldwide, and 6,000 people distributed worldwide. So we have this distributed way of working close to our customers, satisfying their needs, actually just-in-time delivery with all makes, all models in off-road equipment. And certainly this is the unique kind of our business, to be as close as possible, and certainly reducing the downtime, what we are certainly doing. And in this context, as I mentioned, I've started the Gem1, which is the new spin-off, which is collecting data from the equipment and certainly entering the new world of IoT data.
Okay, super. André, TUI Group, 63,000, something like that. Huge organization, right?
Yes, we are. So around 60,000, and then we have 20 million customers approximately.
Okay. And Hitachi Vantara, how big is that? You mentioned revenue and in people, Jay?
We have about 8,000 people at Hitachi Vantara worldwide.
Okay. So 6,000, 8,000, 60,000, pretty big, and I would say sometimes complex, sophisticated organizations. And that's a little bit the topic of today, of course. So we're going to explore mastering complexity, thriving in the era of data explosion. And we're going to see how business can adapt and extract value from the ever-increasing volume and complexity of data. but and focus on the role of data infrastructure. We talk about super adaptability and also balancing security and innovation. Now, in the preparation of this session of today, got me thinking a little bit. And when we think about conceptually about complexity, I think we can say that there's good complexity and there's bad complexity, right? So on the good side, positive complexity, that is when everything is moving. If all the parts are moving well together, if it's well architected, and in a smart way, our systems work well together. And then we can say that we have a sophisticated and a robust system that also, of course, can be complex. Now, complexity can have a negative impact, of course, or a negative vibe to it. And that's when you get into troubles. And that's when systems get too complicated so that they start falling apart, and that we could call this state chaotic state or an entropic state. And then this can bring us to the second law of thermodynamics, of course, where we have to continuously put in positive energies in our systems, in our IT systems as well, to avoid chaos and to avoid entropy. So let's talk about the mastering complexity and the challenges and the opportunities that brings today. So Jay, let's start with you. I mean, how is complexity impacting, in your view, the industry and the storage industry? And how is it that Hitachi Vantara is helping its customer navigate this complexity?
Yeah, I think companies are dealing with a multi-dimensional problem today. They have to have a mix of legacy applications that run their mission-critical applications. In some cases, these are the older ERP applications and so forth that have been running sometimes even on mainframes. And then, of course, there are all these modern applications that are microservices based and things that run some on-prem, some off-prem. And their customers are dealing with disparate applications that require different types of workload, different types of SLAs, different types of deployment models. How they consume all of this stuff becomes extremely critical. And I think this is where complexity comes into play. How do customers extract value from the data, which is the lifeblood of all things here? And that's really where the complexity comes into play. Mm-hmm. Now, how does Hitachi Vantara address this? Hitachi Vantara provides a platform, a common platform that brings together multiple applications, irrespective of what types of applications, whether it's the older mainframes, whether it is the newer applications, whether they are deployed in the cloud, whether they are deployed, irrespective of the type of protocols, irrespective of the type of paradigms people are using, we bring a common software platform that enables you to bring all of these different data disparate sources and seamlessly integrate that to them so that people can extract value. So we provide a common data plane that brings all of these together. And in order to make sure it's not just enough to provide a common data plane, you also have to have an orchestration control plane that allows you to visualize and provide visibility to what the data is and where that resides. That's really where Hitachi Vantara excels at.
Okay, super. Kalman, let's talk about the complexity and how that affects the TVH business. So what kind of strategies does the company have in place to manage this complexity? And I know from our preparation calls that TVH is really building a digital business platform. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So having my military background, I'm often using the term of VUCA. Probably for a lot of you is well-known term. So the volatility, uncertainty, complexity that we are talking about, and certainly the ambiguity. So very clearly, they're just not TVH, but probably a lot of companies, we operate in a very complex environment, not just technological environment. Definitely we'll talk today about the technological side, but generally, the environment where nowadays our businesses operate is quite complex. All relations or parameters which is continuously changing. So we have to be prepared to have this flexibility to adapt and to be resilient to this way of working. And certainly the technological size and the technological elements are important in this journey that we are building. And what we are doing, certainly at TBH, we are taking very serious steps and building towards what we are calling the next level. So it means that we have a strategic plan for 28, which a couple of important elements where TBH is really aiming to become a data-driven organization. It is a very strong and bold statement, but we really strongly believe that data is a key for our business, for our future. The second element certainly is related to what we are calling the simplification, because actually you're right that thermodynamics, if your entropy is increasing, disorder is increasing, but certainly simplifying, this is what we would like to do. This is what information entropy is all about. So putting enough energy in simplifying and standardizing our systems make the complexity certainly much easier to manage. Mm-hmm. And close to that, we have a global project, TBH Innovatis, which is aiming to do that, simplifying not just the technological background, not just the software and the hardware component, but simplifying our way of working, adapting our way of working to the nowadays requirement. And certainly further, we have what we are calling the new digital services, which is actually, we have recognized quite early the importance of the data in the machine-generated data. And in this context, we have started Gen 1, which is a digital spin-off of TBH, which is collecting data from the machineries. This is all around the digital business that you are mentioned in your question, and certainly offering more services for our customer. It's not just for only our customers related to this data, which is it's important, not just for helping our customer to reduce the downtime, but at the same time, it's new business revenue and the money revenue for TBH.
Okay, thank you so much, Kalman. I will go into more detail in a moment when we talk about the data itself. Now, André, 63,000 people running a serious airline organization, hundreds of hotels and resorts, tens of different cruise ships, 20 million customers. Complexity is the nature almost of the business. So how is that? How does that impact your way of working, and how is TUI using technology to address this? I mean, can you talk a little bit about conceptually complexity in your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you say, I would say the travel industry is inherently complex because we don't sell a product from the shelf. You just go to a supermarket and pick it. No, it's just like the customer experienced the travel. So, and travel means not only just the hotel, but also, as you said, you have to fly, and then you have to onboard, you have to get the transfer. All of that has to work out, and that's, of course, very complex. And not only the product itself, but the whole travel industry is kind of complex, because there are so many impacts in this industry. If you think of all the global events that happen, and you always have to adapt, or regulations, especially to data, and then the changing customer preferences that we see. And so we always have to adapt, and that's, of course, always very complex. And so a general recipe is to break things down, of course. So to decouple things, because if everything's just one big big area or one big process, that makes it very difficult to manage. And it's, of course, not only technology. If you think of people processing technology, it starts with the industry, and then, of course, organization. And our organization is set up in a specific way to cope with this travel requirement. And if you know Conway's law, that means like your IT infrastructure and your ecosystem will always very much look like your organization is structured. And complexity can come from there, and complexity can also come out of your processes. So that's very much not technical, but decision making in an organization. That's very important to, that is less complex and that is fast. And we always think things have to be complex enough, not too complex, but also not too simple. Because if you simplify too much, then you might not get to the heart of the issue or the platform. And in general, I would say there is no one concept to cope with complexity. I think it's important to think end to end, so that everyone understands, every area understands, and also every tool has a specific, let's say, task within this processes to keep the complexity low. And that's why we usually look into best of breed solutions. So there's just one team or one technology or one process for one single thing. And then all together from an end-to-end perspective, holistically, can solve a problem. So I think it's an ongoing effort. And I think entropy was already mentioned by Kalman, and I think that's very true. It's physics, that if you do nothing, things will get more and more complex over time if you don't work against it.
Yeah. André, you already mentioned, I think, that you are standardizing IT in one organization, because TUI also grown, I can imagine, quite fast over the last decades by acquisitions and so on. So one of your core strategies is to have one IT team. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. So we moved to a global IT organization a few years ago. It was more or less during COVID because we had the time. So it was very bad for us, as you can imagine. But we took the chance not only to renew our technical landscape, but also our organization. And I mentioned the source markets already. And all the source markets, they have their own IT function doing very similar things. And it turned absolutely out to that it would be a good idea to standardize that. But it doesn't mean like that every market or every function has the same. So standardization means, in my view, you have a standard platform, but then you have a configuration that you can do for the single market. So then you will still add complexity, but this complexity is necessary because you have to adapt to the markets, to the customer out there.
Okay. Now, one of the things that was mentioned is we have to bring in simplification. We have to not only on an IT level, but also on a business, on process level. What is experiences in the group here of how can we make our business simpler? How can we simplify the business processes? Are there some good examples of that?
Yeah, I think here's the way we have to look at it. At the end of the day, people are looking to make decisions to evolve their business and make decisions to make sure that their business runs properly. Any glitch or outage that happens, even if it's a momentary thing, costs us millions of dollars in terms of losses for a company like TUI and others. I mean, this is not just I'm just giving the example of TUI because André is here in the panel. There are other industries as well that has these kinds of issues. How do we make sure that customers can take decisions in real time, especially when they marry these kinds of disparate applications that I talked about earlier, in a world where we also have to worry about security in a very dynamic environment? That's really where the complexity comes into play. And in order to make sure that people can simplify this, I mean, at the end of the day, they have to abstract all of the different things. That's why you have to make sure that you can't sit and make decisions in silos and expect to have decisions being taken in real time. Mm-hmm. You have to be in a position to correlate data and events from multiple disparate places, multiple different platforms, and bring them together in real time. That's where simplicity has to come into play. And the whole idea of trying to build an infrastructure that can talk to each other, exchange information seamlessly, irrespective of where it is deployed and how it is deployed, is really where it is going to be critical. That's where the simplicity has to come into play. Abstracting that is a simple way of getting there.
Okay. Kalman, do you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. So simplifying every time, reducing the complexity is the way to go. And this is what TVH is doing as well. So as I mentioned, TVH Innovate is the large digital transformation project that we have started, what TVH is all about. So putting in place global processes where you can standardize and certainly at the same time making the difference for your own business capabilities, where you're building your own capabilities and using that for differentiating related to your competition, and putting in place what we are calling a composite and certainly capability-based business architecture is offered not just this flexibility, but at the same time the possibility to adapt and certainly to reduce complexity, because at that moment you can manage much easier. And certainly fully agree with your statement, Jay, as far as because in this very moment we are dealing with different kind of data. Certainly as I mentioned, the all data that we are dealing with in the IoT is all streaming data. So every based, you have to take decision in seconds. In the same time, everything which is related to analytics in decision making is changing fundamentally. So far, it was looking behind, reporting. It was what was yesterday or what was today. Instead of that, certainly we are moving ahead what will be. And this is all about the predictive and preventive maintenance, making certain decision-making data-based and inside analytics. So bottom line, actually behind is really how you are dealing with your data. It's all about that. And certainly in order to organize that, at first you have to have a very solid infrastructure. The infrastructure is very important, but at the top of infrastructure is coming all others. It means the right governance, the right security, managing, and certainly the biggest challenge, I guess, for all companies having a complex, that you say, landscape of operation is integration. Every time in the past, when we have taken over a company, it was this the big problem, how to integrate this company in the landscape of data, how create visibility. And this is now certainly with the right architectural choices and business choices, you can simplify. So again, coming back and certainly stating what you have stated in the entropy. So Claude Shannon, our founding father in the information, is talking about information entropy. We have to reduce, simplifying is the way of working.
Okay, super. So let's talk a little bit more about this massive data explosion that we're witnessing. It's a super important topic, of course, and so we need to discuss the strategies that our companies are taking to become more data driven. Maybe André, we can start with you. I mean, this is one of your focus as well. So how is TUI really using data, managing data, and securing data to improve the customer experience, which is key in your business? And are there specific data governance principles, for instance, that you follow for that?
Yeah, definitely. So as you say, there's really an explosion of data, not since a year, I think since 10 years, I would say, roughly, with the concept of data lakes coming up. And first of all, it's a positive thing. It's good that we have so much data. And it's also not too difficult to cope with it, because with cloud infrastructure in place, it's easy to scale, and also from a cost perspective, as long as we talk about storage, that's not really costly. Of course, if we talk about compute, that's a different thing. So, but the challenge is, of course, you have all the data, and let's say you store it, and that might have been a challenge in the beginning. That's not a challenge anymore. But now, how to discover the data, and as you say, how can we map it to a customer experience? And we talk of a customer flywheel. So if we talk about the life cycle of a customer, or of a travel from inspiration to booking, and then the travel itself. So how can we connect that? And what we do is, first of all, we try to standardize as much as possible. So capturing the data in a central data lake with a central way of data ingestion, with a central service for PI data, so personal data, of course, that has to be secured in a very different way than all the other data, so that not every team or every area has to reinvent that again and again. And we make it very easy to send the data, we can pull the data, so that is not really a burden to the teams or to the systems across the group to provide the data. That's one. And then, of course, it's structured data, it's unstructured data, and it's massive. And what we introduced is the concept of data as a product. And that means we try at least to treat data as a product. So a product has a life cycle, has a specific purpose, and you can read about it, it's documented, all of that. And we manage these data products in a data catalog. So you can think of a kind of a marketplace that we more or less have. So if I'm in a business and I need a specific data set, I can look it up in the data catalog. I can find information about the schema. What is it good for? What's the cadence? It's updated. Where to ask to get access? Because of course, not every data is available to everyone in the company. And for all of that, we have processes in place, and that's then where we come to, let's say, standardization is really more important than configuration. So we always start with the standards first, and we provide the central platforms to access the data. And then it's always like technology on one hand, and the business side comes together. Only if that works very well, and there's a good process in place, that this plays out as a good solution. Because if you are only able to provide the data, but you don't understand your business or the specific business area, you have no idea what to do. On the other hand, if you're a specific business area and you have no idea, your blind spots what kind of data is available, what kind of technology is even available, especially with terms of AI, you will also not come up with a good solution. So for us, it's utterly important, and we bring business and IT closer and closer to manage that. But in terms of complexity, we think, our approach is to standardize as much as possible, and then build just the small tool layer on top of it, which is specific for us and where we think we can differentiate from the competition.
Okay, super. So data as a product and in the catalog for business to use when they need it in a secure way. What are the biggest challenges in that approach? Where are you? Where is there still work to be done?
Yeah. So one challenge is, of course, still the coverage. We have a lot of data. It's massive. We have reached out to all the areas to provide the data, but you have to build some traction. So what's in for the areas from that point of view? Because otherwise, every area in the company has lots of stuff to do. The backlog is always absolutely full. So what's the motivation for the teams? And this is where we need to storytell still, and we have to chase from time to time. So that is, of course, one challenge. And we had the challenge of the data description. So it's fine when the data is in the data lake or it's even in the enterprise data warehouse. But if it's not really well documented, it's difficult to understand. But this is what we have really solved very well with AI, that helped a lot in understanding the schemas and documenting the data. And this gives a much clearer view now going forward.
Okay. By the way, if you are following this conference logged in on our website, then there's a comment section there. So you can add to the conversation. And so you can ask your question there, and the team will bring the questions to me, and then I will bring them to the panel. So if you go to CIONEXT.com, you can log in to our website and then join the conversation. So thank you so much, André. Kalman, let's talk a little bit more about data at TVH. And so I know you told me before that you were implementing data fabric architecture, data virtualization, and so on. So where are you on your data roadmap, let's say?
So definitely, so if we are looking to the data, which is, as I mentioned to you, TVH is really a strategic level is stating that we would like to be a data-driven organization. This is a very strong statement, which is really coming from the very top, from the board, and is stated in the in the strategical plan of TVH. So it means that TVH really would like to have this company-wide data culture, because this is that everyone recognizes the data as an asset, an important asset. And we have a very strong background because, for many, many years, IT and businesses were just dealing with what we are calling the operational data. If we are looking now back, it was, let you say, like a piece of cake compared with what we have to deal today with. This is what companies today expecting from us as commodity. They say just normal that I have a necessary operational data that I can do my business. But certainly in the new context, it's all about related to the decision-making, analytics, and certainly, as I mentioned, building knowledge on the top of the information. This is the whole challenge that we are facing. And there we have to implement some other new architectures and certainly not just architecture, but infrastructure in order to do that. And there is where the data fabric design is coming a little bit. Another name, what Jay just mentioned, actually is nothing else than a layer in the top of everything, where the different kind of data sources you have still in your company, a large variety, very classical relational databases. Yes, what is happening? It's happening that you are taking over a company and starting the replication. You are replicating, and at a certain moment you have no clue actually where your master data is, where your golden record is. And this is not the way for the future. This is the reason why this layer of, let you say, virtualization, which is part of the data fabric, can help you. It means that every time you are getting the real-time data from the data source that you would like today, and federated queries is all about where you are consolidating data and presenting to the upper layer, and certainly not just the API side, but the whole data management, metadata management, data security, and all stuff that you have to do in a single layer in a very transparent way. So I guess this is the architecture that we are aiming to build crossover, because just to give an example, dealing with, as I mentioned, the IoT data is totally different with dealing with a normal relational data. The streaming analytics is all about, you have to have those capability to do with streaming analytics and batch analytics in the same time, to filter what is important, what is event for you, what is certainly decision, and all kinds of elements. So this is what we are trying to build at TVH, because at the end of the day, it will be the foundation for the future to enable your company to build artificial intelligence and take advantage for the whole what is coming. Because actually without data, without quality data, without this really embedded culture in your organization where everyone is rely on qualitative data, you cannot build that.
So this goal of becoming a data-driven organization, what are the biggest challenges for that? Is it culture? Is it technology? Is it data quality? Where
so
are
because and every time we are taking something first, we are saying, okay, that first, so the cloud first, the AI first. No, take it in the right way, data first. Without not having a data quality and qualitative information in your organization, forget the rest. So for this reason, honestly, this is something that you have to start at a very high level, at the board level. So you have to recognize the organization, what does it mean, and start let's say, cultivating in your organization this mindset that everyone in the organization value the importance of the data, in streaming to have certainly the quality of the data which we can rely in the decision making. And I guess the complexity, yes, there are many. At first, as I mentioned, having this, let you say, first start at the board level, and after that, have a very clear plan how to implement that, because this is a long term. Actually, if you are looking to your organization, there are a lot of data sources, probably which are not qualitative data enough to support your organization, or you are not protected enough in a certain moment of data. So you have to have a kind of continuous plan in order to realize and to implement that, including infrastructure, including this layer that I'm talking about, data virtualization and data fabric.
Okay, super. So Jay, how is that business can really build this robust data infrastructure that can support to become a data-driven organization?
Yeah, I think André and Kalman talked about a number of different challenges. I mean, in André's case, at the end of the day, what he needs to worry about is customer experience. How do you make sure you have the right experience with a customer that is coming in to either make a reservation or for an airline or a hotel or whatever it is that is required? And then similarly, from the perspective of Kalman, he talked about how do we make sure that we can have a pretty good view into how many copies of the data are being sent, who has got access to this data, and so forth. At the end of the day, you're trying to harmonize data from different infrastructures. In some cases, it's structured infrastructures like enterprise warehouses. In other cases, it's unstructured data that is sitting in some lake house, coming from some IoT device or even some other place. There are a number of unique challenges that come into play in terms of, just a few examples of that is data sovereignty. Which data can reside where? How do you make sure it doesn't get to the wrong place, wrong geo, and so forth? And I think those are the kinds of things that people have to worry about. That's where the virtualization layer comes into place. How do you bring all of these things together? How do you ensure that you know how many copies of data do you have, who has got access to the data, which is the current data, and which is the stale data, and so forth? Those are the things that you have to kind of look at. And this is where I'm going to use the word loosely, tagging, and making sure that the right metadata is available for the data source to access what is required and what is current is really critical. Now, the whole aspect of it is how do you bring this into a single pane of glass so that customers can access it? I mean, when I say customers, I'm not talking about the end customers. The business decision makers can determine what to make out of it, because how we look at that data can be varied depending on the lens that you wear or what you have. Some people are looking to look at it from the perspective of, I need to make a decision in real time for a customer that's trying to make a reservation, for instance. In other cases, people are looking at what is the set of historical patterns that we see so that I can make sure that it can enable us to make the customer sticky. So depending on the lens, it's going to vary. Now, bringing an infrastructure that does all of this stuff is really what matters. That's where harmonizing all of these different disparate sources, enabling customers to be, enabling infrastructure providers, enabling business leaders to be able to get all of this data and the right data with the right lens is really what is more critical. That's where a lot of this comes into play. AI obviously provides a significant benefit today, but today most of these use cases today are in support or peripheral use cases. Yes, a lot of people are starting to experiment it in how do I make sure that I can use this in the context of proactive management, proactive decision making, and so forth. That's really where the world is going to or evolving to.
Okay, super.
Maybe I can add to that in terms of data-driven organizations. So that is not a technology problem. It can be if you don't have your technology right, but assuming you have all that, what was just described in place, you're still not a data-driven company. And this also varies from industry to industry. To give an example from travel. For me, data-driven is data-driven decisions, so decision-making, because all organizations basically do decisions. And in travel, this used to be a lot of gut feeling decisions in the past. So there's a Spain expert or Greek expert, and this expert might think, I feel that next year in summer, I somehow feel Greek will be just great. So let's get more volume there or so. And it's not easy to change that to a data-driven decision, to say, so first step would be, of course, to share the data and explain the data and then discuss. But the ultimate goal would always be to automate that. And that's what we have done. So we come from printed catalogs, prospects, where there was one price per season for a specific travel. And we are now changing millions of prices every day. Of course, not manually. And that is for me data-driven decision-making, because that has an impact. Everything else is not really an impact.
Okay. We've got a question from the audience here. And one person asked, well, there's an increasing complexity of privacy laws as well worldwide. So what strategies can we put in place to safeguard sensitive data? And I mean, with GDPR, global data center cloud providers, André, you have 20 million customers all over the planet, I can imagine. How the hell can you manage all these different privacy laws and GDPR regulations?
Yeah. First of all, there's this privacy paradox, as we call it. So people don't like to share data, including all of us, I think. So we want to be as dark as possible. But on the other side, we expect from companies like they should treat us really as individuals, and they should know everything about us and make just the best experience you can think of. So this kind of paradox, of course. And I think, Kalman, you mentioned data first. I would still always think security first, because there's nothing to negotiate or balance or whatsoever. If you think of the GDPR European penalties, that would be, I think, 4% of your annual revenue. So which is devastating, and not counting the loss of trust in your brand. So we are a strong brand in travel, and so there's no way we can bring that, or we have not the data protected and secure. And that's why we centralized it, as mentioned, with regards to PI data that is encrypted in the sourcing system, and then just very limited decrypting down the route. In some of the systems, of course, you have to do that. And so you have to absolutely enforce it with clear guidelines, but not only guidelines, but also from the system. So systems that are built with security first in your mind. So these terms like zero trust architectures and all of that has to be in place. It's just the must-have. This is something you cannot debate. And then on top of that, you can build. But also, as with complexity, just secure and protective enough. And you can always go beyond that. You can encrypt the data again and again and again, which gives you very limited extra security or protection, but then has a great impact on the value you have from the data. Yeah. So as always, for complexity, for security, and for everything else, good enough. But there's a level you cannot go below.
Okay. Of course, we don't manage all this data, collect and store it in lakes and virtualize it and so on just for the fun of it. We do it to create better customer experience, to take better business decisions, and to create new products and services. So Kalman, tell us, and we do that nowadays with advanced analytics and with AI. That's really the topic of the day. I mean, there's a new super new AI model every week, it sounds like at the moment. So Kalman, how do you look at this, and how is TVH using AI to improve its operations, for instance, and so how far are you in your in that roadmap, let's say, in that
So honestly, I'm for a long time in the IT industry, more than 40 years behind me, every time dealing with all what we are discussing, and certainly what is going on now it's really amazing. So how fast things are changing. And honestly, we're experimenting with what we are calling machine learning for a long time, and sometimes having difficulty because not the models are not good, but certainly the quality of data, just mentioned, that we were not building at that time enough quality in our data to manage and to build reliable, good models. But certainly what is going now, and certainly we are just recently at TVH implemented and released the Gemini workspace for Google, which is a quite amazing tool. How can help our people to do their daily work better, to collaborate, and certainly everything, created the content creation and some data analysis and visualization, just the basic. It means that is there. You use in there, certainly you can do that. Certainly the ones that you are touching the ground, the more complex stuff and more complex models, for instance, as I mentioned, we are aiming to build a knowledge system helping our customer to solve the daily problems in the service industry, which is very complex. The whole service industry is living on books, service books. Every time that you're getting a new machinery, you're getting a library behind with service books, and you have to read it and to understand what is going. Certainly, this sometimes is in the head of the people, service engineers, but what we are now trying to do, get this intelligence out of the books and certainly build models in order to use certainly agents, AI agents to help that. Further down the road, just to mention the TBH Innovation Challenge. Yes, we have Innovation Challenge in the TBH, just finished the Innovation Challenge. The winning project is one where the picture recognition, so it's called pick apart. It means that we are aiming that our customer is just taking a picture of the spare part that you have problems with, and we will recognize and we say, this is what you have to order to the e-commerce system of TBH based on the image recognition. So see, there are different domains and different elements, but one that we are really going to the core of the discussion, and certainly all about data, as we have mentioned a little bit earlier in our discussion. I'm really shocked by the statement of Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, where stating the software as a service is dead. So because of the AI, it means that the whole backend, it will be replaced by a swarm of AI agents doing and well orchestrated, doing the job for your company. So I say, my goodness. So it means that what we have learned, what we have built, thousands and millions of codes, of lines and everything, maybe we have to forget and concentrate everything in our reliability in our data, because those agents we run on the top of our data and doing the job for us much flexible, much easier. So it was really shocking. In the meantime, I'm reading and listening all comments to that. And at the same time, they're stating the timeline 2-3 years. So Microsoft is building in this direction. So really coming back to your question, we are living exciting times, certainly in the IT industry.
That's the least we can say. So Jay, what's your take on this? What do you see as major trends of in AI today, and then specifically in maybe in the storage industry or the customers that you work with?
I think it's a combination of different things. I mean, I think people are trying to figure out what to do with AI in some cases. Some of them are using it for support functions. Some of them are using it for understanding statistical parts of it in terms of problem resolution. How do I make sure that I can get proactive visibility into what is going to happen based off event correlation and so forth. The other place where AI is definitely being used is in compliance, security and compliance. André talked about some of the things around encryption in terms of security. Security and compliance is actually, one is a technology problem, one is a process problem, one is a process aspect of it. And I think this is where AI is going to be able to help a lot. And a lot of people are experimenting with, how do I make sure that I understand using AI models and using AI paradigms, identifying whether I'm in compliance, well, for the data, well, for all of the different aspects of the process that I'm doing, who has got access to it? How do I make sure that I can get ahead of it in terms of making sure that I don't get into a compliance issue? I mean, the fines as André was talking was pretty steep. Essentially looking at visibility to the data, taking that paradigm, using AI to ensure whether I'm in compliance, what do I do to make sure that I don't get out of compliance? How do I make sure I meet the regulatory requirements and so forth? Those are examples of things that that people are using AI for. The other aspect of it is in the storage industry, I would say, is we're also looking at how do we augment AI. The way I think about it is AI is an augmentation of the brain, human brain. That's really how I think about it. And people are essentially looking at, how do I speed up things? How do I increase velocity? Whether innovation happens, but at the same time, if I can speed up innovation using AI, that's another aspect of it that people are looking at. How do I make sure that I can look at what is going to happen? Earlier, it used to be like people used to call it as what if scenarios. Now, AI is essentially kind of leapfrogging that, using agents to kind of think about it 10x further and faster. That's really where AI is being used across the board.
Okay, super. So, André, in your industry and your organization, how do you see today already AI helping to improve operations and customer experience?
Yes, of course. So we talked about data-driven companies, and now the question is, I think we also have to talk about AI-driven companies and what that means. So we haven't decided if we want to be an AI-driven company or not. And in general, of course, AI is the topic of the current times, and it might go away or go in the background a bit more again when it gets so commodity that it is anyway part of everything, just like network or something like that. And yeah, for us, it's very important, and it is a threat, of course, it's a threat to our business, and it's an opportunity in the same time. I think as Kalman mentioned, this has not been started with the rise of Gen AI 2 or 3 years ago. Machine learning and all that things were part of especially our pricing optimization for quite some years. But of course, Gen AI brought it to the next level. And for us, utterly important is how can we connect to our customers and especially the inspiration. So for us, the future of search. So and this is changing. So for not centuries, but for dozens of years at least, if you look for travel, you usually get a form. You put your date in and how many people you are and where you want to go. And this worked quite well so far, and we did a lot of SEO and we spent a lot of money there. But this is about to change. Because here now bots come into place, different and new search engines come into place, from Google to Perplexity as an example. And the question for us is, okay, how do we deal with that, and how can we have an advantage to our competition? What does it mean to move more from a user experience to an agent experience? Because tomorrow it might not be the user or the customer coming to our website. Maybe it's an agent, your personal agent. And so we have to look at our content and our images. So how do we present our products in a very different way? And AI solutions we have across the board, I would say. And you can differentiate between the internal solutions. To give an example, we created a kind of AI chatbot platform so that everyone in the company, every one of these more than 60,000, can create their own chatbot for their specific task. And this was adopted very well. So thousands of chatbots have been built for, let's say, for onboarding people, to just explain some acronyms, for calculation, for content creation, all of that. And that was also important because if you want to be an AI-driven company, then you have to train and explain AI to the people. And that, as I mentioned earlier, only works if technology and business knowledge comes together. And these kinds of applications, internal applications, help people to understand what is AI good for. So that's internal. And then external, of course, in the sales process. Also in our hotels, for example, the reps cannot always be 24/7 around, but you see the weather changing. Tomorrow it's raining now, and I want to do an excursion. And so that's where we created chatbots that you can 24/7 ask, okay, you know what, I'm a family, and tomorrow I need some fun stuff to do because otherwise I will be really in trouble here with my kids. These kind of things we are doing. But yeah, main topic currently is the future of search.
Okay, super. So, I mean, we could continue to talk another hour about AI, of course, without any problems. Well, Kalman, we haven't touched on. Did we touch on your AI experience already? Kalman?
Yes.
Okay, we did too. Okay. So let's go to the next topic. I mean, we talked about complexity and how we manage that, how we need to standardize, how we need to centralize, how do we need to build modular systems, and how we need to integrate everything, and so on and so on, all the good things that we need to do. We talked about data. We need to create a data culture, data-driven organizations, data as a product, many important aspects. How we talked about AI, and advanced analytics, how we can use the data to create better processes, better services, and so on. So below all that, of course, is still the good old infrastructure, right? And also the infrastructure. I mean, infrastructure used to be very simple, long time ago, where you had one big machine and one team to manage it. And nowadays, the infrastructure is a little bit everywhere, different systems, and cloud is, of course, a big player. And I think the reality today is that almost every company today is a hybrid cloud organization, right? So maybe, Kalman, let's talk a little bit about your hybrid cloud infrastructure that you have at TVH today, and what the goal is, what the vision is. Do you really want to become a native cloud organization? And what's the impact of the typical IoT and edge computing environment where you're in on this aspect?
Sure. So I guess that for a company like TVH, because the decision what to do, what next, I guess that the future is definitely will be cloud. But you cannot do that in one single step. So there are organizations that you cannot do that because you have your infrastructure, you have to use it, or you have some local constraints that you have to do that locally because you have local automation, for instance, the case of TVH, or you have a large edge related side where you have to deal with this locally. So actually the journey to the cloud is not just that you are starting and you are running your organization and moving in one single step to the cloud. Definitely when you have this chance, and I'm talking here about the Gen 1, the organization that we have started for the digital business platform of TVH, when you are getting the chance to build that from greenfield, this is another story. Yes, for Gen 1, we have taken the cloud native architecture because it's really simplifying. If once that you have what we are calling cloud native managed services, a lot of complexity is going away because this is something is built in, for instance, we are using the Google infrastructure and certainly the Google platform. They are taking responsibility to do a lot of things to simplifying your operations, and not just simplifying, but your security, protecting availability, and name it. So again, if you have the chance to do all the way from the very first moment in the cloud, just do it. If certainly you have constraints, as I mentioned, there is no other option than the hybrid cloud is the way to go, because at that moment, certainly you're simplifying and doing a uniform management, because at the end of the day, again, we are touching the ground of the data. It's all about how your data flow is orchestrated. What is flowing, where is your workload? Is this locally, or is this actually in the cloud, and how you are balancing this workload from one side to other side? You know, as you have mentioned, for instance, Gen 1 is all about the edge computing that we are building on top of machinery, so we are collecting data. So edge computing definitely is a major driver for the hybrid cloud, because a lot of companies are constrained for instance, I'm giving just a couple of examples, that you have a lot of local machineries which producing data. So far, this data was just flowing away. You are realizing that this data is important for you, so you are starting to collect it. And you have to do that locally because of the very low latencies or autonomy, or maybe cost, because you have certainly to process it locally. Those elements are really driving the choice of local and hybrid, certainly in the terms of what we are calling the hybrid cloud. Yep. And the complexity is coming once that you are touching the ground of how to integrate very old technologies, because the OT is coming sometimes with very, very old technologies, and certainly integrating that in the new technology is not so easy. You have to build some good layering in your architecture to do that.
Okay. Jay, I can imagine you and Hitachi Vantara have many things to talk about, and I'll share in a moment also a link to an interesting study that you have done together with MIT on the rise of the data platform for hybrid cloud. So tell us a little bit about that study. Tell us a little bit about your strategy on how to manage hybrid cloud?
And at the end of the day, customers are looking to evolve their businesses based off of what their dynamic needs are. And I think the most important thing is, what is the ultimate business outcome that they want to get from a deployment in the hybrid cloud? That's really the one thing that we have to look at. Now, people are looking at it from the perspective of hybrid cloud for flexibility, for agility, for essentially making sure that they can do consumption-based models. And some companies have already started, including ours. We are already doing consumption models in the on-prem infrastructure as well, our private cloud. At the end, Kalman already talked about it. How do we bring multiple different applications, whether it's old and new, in the context of different environments and also on-prem and the hybrid cloud? Now, what we have been doing is to enable customers to deploy applications in whichever form that they want, wherever they want. We don't have an affinity towards we got to deploy it in the on-prem or in the cloud. We enable customers to kind of pick their own sort of choice in terms of where they want to get to, and that's really what they will do. We allow for customers to manage on-prem infrastructures just like everything else. At the same time, if you want a little bit of a hybrid environment where you have some on-prem and some off-prem, definitely we do that. At the same time, you want the same experience in the context of a public cloud, we definitely enable them to be able to do that in the context of a hyperscaler like AWS or Azure or Google. Those are things that we are definitely pretty flexible about. At the end of the day, we're not trying to fight anything in this context. We are enabling customers to be able to get their outcomes irrespective of how they want to do this. The infrastructure, and our goal is to provide a common infrastructure. In fact, our storage virtualization operating system can be seamlessly deployed, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, and that's really one of the big pieces of it. Kalman talked about data fabric earlier. The data fabric, to a large degree, is to bring all of these different things, irrespective of the deployment models, and allow them to be able to extract the value out of the data, because that's really the key part of it.
Okay, this is the, by the way, the report I was talking about, the rise of the data platform for hybrid cloud. So if you go to link.cionext.com/HV, then you can get a copy of that report. So André, let's move back to you again. I mean, you've shared already that in general, infrastructure-wise, application-wise, you have a strategy of best of breed, and you also have a buy and build philosophy. Now, best of breed can come with some extra complexity, right? So how do you manage that? How do you balance also the need between security and agility and innovation in such a hybrid cloud and best of breed environment?
Yeah, maybe I start with a hybrid cloud, and in my view, because of course we have a hybrid cloud like more or less everyone has, but not because we want to have, but we have to. So we would always go cloud first and would love to have everything in the cloud, but we can't for latency and for legacy applications. And this is something that will stay quite a while. We also do that not for cost reasons. I think nobody does it really. It is for non-functional requirements, security, but especially scalability. I think that's a very important point. And coming now to capabilities, I think it is not really on-prem against cloud, but usually cloud brings a lot more capabilities usually, because you buy even software as a service, so the whole software comes with it, and some compute power, and especially in terms of AI, you would not even be able to have that on-prem. And so coming now, best of breed, best of suite in terms of complexity. So first of all, if you have a suite, it doesn't mean it's not complex, because usually these suites have also grown over time. Parts have been acquired and somehow integrated or so. So that's not usually something that might look the same or very easy to connect to, but it usually isn't. And as we could see from the development over the last years, the fast development, not only in AI, but in general in technology, it's hard to set your bets on one or the other company. So that's why we think there are vendors that have their strengths here, and there might be a different vendor which has their strengths somewhere else. And Then, of course, it comes with complexity if you have to integrate systems. But at the same time, you have less complexity because, as I mentioned earlier, there's just one system, one purpose. What can happen, what is a challenge, this best-of-breed provider, they come up with a great solution for a specific topic. Great, you're on board. And then these vendors get bored because they solve the problem, but they still want to do additional business. So they now start to add capabilities on top of it. And then these capabilities overlap. So it's not just like the black and white solution that you just have to go with best of breed and then you're done. Or sometimes these companies are acquired. But if you want to be really fast and you need this kind of advantage in non-commodity things, so we would not, as an example, go for a multi-cloud strategy only because there are different pockets in infrastructure where we think this company can do it just a bit better. This is for us commodity. We have to buy it somewhere. We do it in AWS, and that's fine, and that's done. But it's in the more differentiating pieces in personalization or in customer data platforms, wherever, where we think when we pick and choose and then add our flavor to it, that's the best solution for us.
Okay, super. Any other things we wanted to add on infrastructure discussion here? Or are we ready to go to the next point?
The one thing
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Kalman. Go ahead.
So very short comment, certain, because André was touching the multi-cloud is definitely important to make a right choice. What the reason is you're choosing for multi-cloud? Because one that certainly have application which is running in a different cloud, okay, you have not the choice. But if you can make the choice, it's much better to manage one single one. Certainly, we are discussing about certainly all kinds of other elements, but managing a cloud is not so easy. You have to build up in your own organization a whole stack of experience, because unfortunately, nowadays the full interchangeability between the different cloud services are not there. Infrastructure is just move it very easy. It means that containers can move, but only are touching the ground of data and databases and data services and application getting to be very messy.
You're going to end up with multiple infrastructure teams, one for one cloud, one for the other, one for the mainframe, and so on, right?
This is all.
So Jay, you wanted to add to that as well?
Yeah, I'll just make 3 quick points. One is, in some cases, customers are looking at multi-cloud deployments as a risk mitigation, because they don't want to get yourself locked into a particular hyperscaler, because you kind of have the same issue in terms of a single vendor strategy versus multi-vendor strategy. That's number 1. 2 is, when you talk about hybrid cloud in general, I think one of the common things people tend to make a mistake of is, I'm going to take my existing application and then lift and shift into the context of in the cloud infrastructure. That's not always the best way to think about it, because you have to make sure that the cloud infrastructure is very different. I mean, I think some of the things were mentioned. The latency aspects of it, performance aspects of it, and all that stuff would be very different. And then more than anything, as a third part of it is around IP considerations. And we have to be very careful about what customers want, what companies want in terms of where their data resides and so forth. And I think both Kalman and André mentioned, at the end of the day, the overriding part of it is economics. Cost plays a huge part when it comes to cloud. Now, you have to be very clear about what is it that you want, and you just don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it. And my experience is, as André said, every company probably has an hybrid cloud deployment, but the percentage of applications in the cloud versus on-prem varies pretty much all over the board. Some people are just doing like 5% of their applications. Some people are doing 95% of the applications. It varies completely. And I think you have to kind of figure out what you need and what you want out of the cloud before you just kind of get into the cloud, because it has its own complexities.
Super. Next topic I want to bring into this discussion, and we've got 50 minutes left, so we have to manage the time a little bit, is complexity and security, cybersecurity. I mean, the more complex and bad complexity that we have in our systems, the more risk that we're taking and the more insecure our systems become, and the more well, sensitive they are to attacks and ransomware attacks and so on. So, Kalman, maybe I want to ask you first. I know that TVH, there was a major incident some time ago. Had that to do with complexity, and how do you look at that now, quite some time after the facts? What was the learning, the big learning of the incident that you had?
So not really. You know that every time when you are looking back and you're saying, you're making your checklist and you're saying, were I prepared for that? And you are amazed that you are pretty much well prepared for that. But that's not the problem. The problem is that the threat is evolving so fast that nobody is prepared. So at a certain moment, actually, it's not a question if, is a question when you are coming under attack. It was very painful for TVH for sure, but unfortunately we have managed, and this is quite amazing that we managed to solve the problem ourselves. Mm-hmm. We have indeed a ransomware, it's a very strong team supported by our partners, because you have this challenge that actually not just encrypting your data, but extracting data from and therefore you have this double challenge. So the first lesson learned, I guess, for everyone is, please look for your data backups, not just copying your data from one hard disk to the other hard disk, which will be probably encrypted as well, to have different layers of backup, because this is what saved us. We have the secondary, backup system in tapes, and it was very, very useful for the data. This is one. The second, definitely the whole protection of the data we are doing, and we are investing a lot in this end-to-end protection of your security of your data. Certainly building insight, and we are doing continuously that this awareness culture, so to explain to your people what it's all about. Coming to the data extraction, is important that you have as strong as possible recognizing which data is taken out of your system, the data catalog, and certainly having this visibility of what is on, because this is defining your strategy against the people that you are in contact with. So yes, it's a very important. We are heavily investing, we are improving continuously. I guess every time it's a never-ending story. So you have to do that continuously, work with your technology, work with good partners actually to do that, and have a strong team inside to solve the problem, if any occurs.
Good. André, I know it's maybe not specifically your topic that you're dealing with every day, but what's your vision on this? There must be, you're a very public organization, so there must be quite some security threats that you're facing, and how do you look at that in the context of complexity?
Yeah, like everyone from us, we are always under attack as we speak here. I'm pretty sure somebody tries to get our data or to hack some of the systems. That's what is normal. And if I think again of people, process, and technology, it's the most dangerous part here in it is people, as we know, because if you think of all the breaches that we learned of. Or phishing attacks whatsoever, it's a human in the loop that clicked somewhere where it shouldn't. And so, of course, you have to have your technology right. And I think, as we will talk about cloud infrastructure, cloud helps a lot here, because you get a much more standardization of reporting, of authentication, of authorization. All of that you don't have to invent by yourself, by your company, but you can benefit from the best industry practices in the cloud. But still, and now I think if you talk about threats with AI, it gets even more difficult, because AI cannot only find out ways to hack your systems, but also can very much imitate humans, as we are having here a video conference. You might have seen these examples already, where AI is able to generate this kind of video streams. And it's not me here, but it's AI talking and talking to you like, could you please do this or that? So I think this is the biggest threat going forwards, and it's more about the human than about the technology itself, I would say.
So we have to agree on a secret word, a secret code, when we start a conference from now on to make sure it's not an agent. That is
Probably, yeah, maybe.
Jay, what is your view on all this? I mean, complexity in IT systems.
Or doing the Turing test, Henrik.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your view on this?
Yeah, André actually mentioned, right? Like it's basically coming back to the 3 A's: authentication, authorization, and accounting. But I think at the end of the day, we have to look at who's accessing the data, what is the data that is being accessed, when is this being accessed, and how is that being accessed. A lot of the issues tend to be human, as André said. So I completely agree with that. I think the few things that I would say is, I mean, at the end of the day, there are a few sophisticated ways in terms of how you can protect your data. Kalman talked about how do we make sure that you have copies of backups and so forth. But at the same time, you also have to make sure that the data that you have is actually a clean copy and so forth. We have sophisticated technologies like thin image advanced, which are basically snapshot based. And then, of course, there are the standard techniques in terms of encryption and others like trunking, RBAC, all of those different things, and multipathing, all of those different things, so that you can ensure that only the right kind of people can access the right level of data. That's always there from a technology perspective. But beyond that, I think the most important thing is visualization and telemetry. A lot of this is understanding who accesses the data, what is the data that is being accessed. And so this goes back to the who, what, when, and how, and making sure that we have a clean correlation of this. This is where some of the AI techniques or AI paradigms are helping, so that you can correlate. If something happens in point A, is there any correlation to that in something that happens in point B or C, so that we can say, hey, there is a potential possibility that there's an infiltrator that has come into place and so forth. Those are things that you can essentially look at using AI augmentation. That is definitely there. At the end of the other part of it is you also have to look at all of these different government regulations. I mean, in the US government has got an executive order on cybersecurity. DORA regulations are there, DPDP is there, PII is there. All of these different things are processes and technologies together. And Hitachi as a company has a very detailed set of security processes, both in terms of our development processes, as well as how we help customers. And I think this is where I really go back to people, processes. Those are two things that are absolutely important. And then there are products. So all three have to come together to be able to make sure that we have a clean security paradigm.
Yeah. What strikes me also, of course, is that earlier on we talked about developing a data culture in the organization, and of course we also have to create a security culture.
Sure.
So there's a lot of things that we need to do with our people to get them to become more. I mean, they have to be digital. We have to create a real digital culture, and data and security is certainly an important part of that. Last topic for our brilliant discussion of today is complexity and sustainability. And so, I mean, it's a big topic that also IT needs to work with. So sustainability in IT, but then also sustainability with IT. So maybe, Kalman, if you want to go first, and could you share maybe one example where TVH is and where you're using IT to reduce the environmental impact of the organization?
So maybe very shortly, just because it's an important topic, definitely, and I'm stating really which is coming from our strategical choice. Sustainability is in our DNA. So TVH is really, as company is building it. So in the last 15 years, TVH was chosen as example here in Belgium for what we are calling a sustainability champion, and in the ECO, which is comparing the worldwide activities as far as sustainability is really ranking TVH very high in his industry. So again, it's a strategic choice, and it's reflected in all what we are talking about in the IT as well. So I'm giving just an example because we don't have time. As I mentioned, we are building this new digital business. One of the components what we are now building is really measuring the footprint of operating equipment, because the old machinery is moving, have a footprint in the ecological footprint, and we are trying to help our customer to reduce this footprint actually by measuring the different parameters which influencing the starting from fuel consumption, energy consumption, all kinds of other parameters, and reporting that back. And certainly this will help our customers globally in the world to reduce, because all transportation, all moving material is having a heavy impact. And certainly everything which is related to the green energy that TVH is doing is all about.
Great, Kalman, thank you for that. André, in the travel industry, sustainability is a big topic, I can imagine. I know that your colleague Isabel, as a CIO, even has the specific responsibility to go over sustainability. So what are the special things that you're doing? What do you see as challenges and opportunity of IT helping the business here?
Yeah, as you say, so there are two things that are, there's quite a debate with regards to sustainability. One is travel, and the other is AI, and we do both. So obviously, this is a challenge, but we think we are force for good, even because people want to travel and people will travel. So let's do it in the most sustainable way that we can do that. So with regards to fuel consumption, also helping the destinations and giving them a future. So we have a lot of initiatives on the business side of that. And for technology, I think there are lots of bits and pieces here and there where we support it with applications. So of course, with every process you optimize with IT, let's say for the airline or for the hotels or even for cruises or for transfers. So when a bus is not going 10 times with one person on it, but just 5 times because somehow optimized, these are the little bits and pieces where we from tech side help to be more sustainable. Up to also reporting, so to make it transparent, where we spend what, and we have clear objectives where we want to be with regards to zero emission going forward, and also providing the data, which closes the loop now. Having the data at your hand to understand, okay, this is my footprint, and this is what we want to do about it, and also track that.
Okay, super. Jay, how is Hitachi Vantara helping its customers to be more sustainable?
I mean, every company that we talk to, every customer that we talk to has some kind of an environmental goal that they need to track. And especially if it's a public company, it's definitely something that's becoming extremely important. This is not just a reporting thing. It's more to do with corporate responsibility as well, social responsibility in this context. I think from our perspective, I'm proud to say that our VSP1 platform has been rated gold, silver, and bronze in all 3 awards in this category. And I think what we've been doing is obviously a few things. From a product perspective or a solution perspective, we have some specific technologies that will allow for ensuring that we have dynamic carbon reduction internally. That's one thing. We kind of look at from the perspective of how do we make sure that we can reduce the infrastructure across the board so that the physical infrastructure can be significantly reduced. This is where common technologies like ADR, the data efficiency aspects of it that come into play. How do we make sure that we can spin down things so that when it's not being used and so forth? Those are common techniques that we use in this context. But at the end of the day, there's a whole lot of things that we kind of look at to make sure that we are sort of subscribing to the green ID aspects of it and making sure that whatever we provide to customers, and especially with AI, I mean, I know we talked a lot about AI. AI is also spooling up a lot of things in terms of GPU usage. GPUs are pretty much a lot of it consume a lot of power. And at this rate, if we continue to use if everybody starts using GPUs instead of CPUs, we'll probably be into a power hungry state at this point already. I mean, we'll be completely deprived of power at this point of time. So we are very conscious of that, and our products and solutions cater to a number of things, and every aspect of it. We have obviously a sustainability initiative across the global Hitachi conglomerate as well. So we look at every option possible to ensure that we can, both in terms of how we utilize it within the company, as well as how we can help customers with some of our products and solutions, is something that we always look at.
Okay, again, a topic that we could spend a whole conference on a whole day, just discussing a super important topic. I think we've come to the end of this brilliant conversation. So I'd like to thank Jay, André, and Kalman for your contributions. I really appreciate it. I would also like to give you a couple of more last announcements. And so, first of all, thank you, Hitachi Vantara, for organizing this together with CIONEXT. As I said, link.cionet.com/HV is where you can download this very, very interesting report. Don't forget to go to CIONET.tv and check out the long format video interview that we did with Jay. And if you want to do this, have this experience again on a different topic, go to CIONEXT 21, CIONEXT.com/21, and that is where you can register for the upcoming 21st edition of CIONEXT. And so with that, we are at the end of the day today. I'd like to thank also the team at Hitachi Vantara, Steph and Suchi and Ina. Would like to thank the CIONET team behind the scenes, Anna and Alicia and Evelina and Bartosz and Valentine. And I would like to thank everybody that watched this online conference. It was really, really a pleasure. And so I look forward to see you, all of you, again very soon. And so thanks again, Jay, Kalman, and André.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
For the last 15 years, I've been on a quest to discover the DNA of the most successful digital leaders in the world. What makes them tick, what's in their minds and in their hearts. We are sharing deep insights from our world-class CIOs so that you get inspired, can learn and reach your full potential as a digital leader. If you are an ambitious technology executive, then I invite you to join CIONET. Join our community so that you too can realize your ambition.